You don't need to be a gearhead to enjoy a good-looking car. The Fast and Furious franchise has outdone itself time and time again, but we all still notice that there were times when something just wasn't working. Maybe it felt like the cars being driven by Dom and the gang didn't fit, or maybe they were just straight up ugly. Here were 10 times the movies just didn't get it right. At number 10, we have the RB26 Mustang. The RB26 Mustang, which was featured in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, is one of the most controversial cars that appeared in any Fast and Furious movie, and the reason is pretty cut and dry. Sacrilege. They added a legendary JDM engine to an otherwise amazing muscle car, which seemed like an unnecessary thing to do, especially if you're trying to appeal to gearheads. For the non-gearheads out there, think of it as dipping your fries in ice cream, and hopefully you can understand our annoyance. For those of you psychos that find this a reasonable combo, we can only pray. Now, even though from a technical standpoint, this car was a shame, it was still pretty to look at with a decent body kit. Besides, we're sure most people other than avid car enthusiasts probably didn't take any issue with it. The rest of the cars on this list though, yikes! Moving on to number 9, the Bentley Continental. Now, let us start by saying that the Bentley Continental is an absolutely beautiful car that embodies elegance and class. That being said, it's still on this list because it simply doesn't fit the vibe and atmosphere of the gritty, furious movies. Fast and Furious films have always been about the streets and dirty racing, which we feel is best embodied by the cool, powerful, modified cars we love to see with Dom and his crew. This car is still pretty low on the list because as a car, it's just fine, but seeing it in a Fast and Furious movie felt like eating a steak at a McDonald's. It's just not right. Also, on another note, even though the car itself is a beauty, the body kit they chose for the movie was just plain ugly, with horrible chrome alloys and a tacky paint job, which made sure that this car wasn't pleasing to the eyes, even though it's supposed to be a beautiful machine, making the whole situation all the more upsetting. So basically, not only was this thing ugly to look at because of the modifications the movie makers chose, it really didn't fit next to cars like the AMG GTS and the C2 Corvette. Moving on to number 8 on our list, the Honda Civic Coupe. The Honda Civic Coupe from the Fast and the Furious is driven by Danny during a heist scene and also a race against Dom. Okay, now this is a good-looking car, but unfortunately, that's as far as it goes. The Honda Coupe is something of a joke in car enthusiast circles and is mockingly called a ricer. The car is simply too slow, and it makes no sense for a Honda to be racing against Dom and his Dodge Charger. Not only is the car just something that doesn't fit, the modifications, while cool at the time, just don't hold up, and the 2000s vibe is very cringe as we rewatch the films in 2022. Above all else though, the sacrilege of running a Honda Coupe alongside a Dodge Charger in a heist scene is what puts this car here on the list. Now on to number 7, the Maserati Ghibli. Maserati is known well for their unreliable cars, but the Ghibli takes the cake. It's known among car enthusiasts as an absolute waste of money, and it's genuinely overpriced for the specs that it boasts. The interior is nothing short of cheap, and that too on a car as pricey as this, but the real crime is that this was the car given to Deckard Shaw. Shaw is arguably one of the coolest characters in the franchise, wooing us with his suave and rugged ways. The filmmakers should have just let Shaw drive the McLaren 720S he was given in the franchise's other title, Hobbs & Shaw. Other than the car not fitting Shaw's vibe and being overpriced and unreliable, it's also just too plain and frankly kind of boring. When we think of how we could have had amazing moments with Jason Statham's character and his amazing McLaren 720S, we can't help but shake our heads. Number 6, the Volkswagen Jetta. This entry is honestly just kind of funny. The car itself isn't ugly or anything. The modifications and the paint job were also pretty well done, if only we could leave it at that. Unfortunately, the Jetta, while otherwise very famous among car enthusiasts, is another case of a poorly chosen car for the franchise. Using it in a high-speed sequence, and that too on the sand, that's a straight-up no from us. What makes it all funny though is that this car is VW's attempt to create an ambassador for their CSR programs on environmental friendliness. The car is known for being slow, and in movies about high-speed races, and that too in the sand, the Jetta would literally not move. Unforgivable, but very funny. Number 5, the Nissan Maxima. Vince was Dom's second in command in the movie The Fast and the Furious, and to give him such a commonplace car just doesn't make sense. The Nissan Maxima isn't a bad car, but again, it isn't the right car at all. Vince is stuck in this sad family car and has to run it next to super modified beasts like the Toyota Supra MK4 and the iconic 900 HP Dodge Charger, the Dom rocks. In classic bad Fast and Furious car fashion, they couldn't leave it at just choosing a bad car and and had to add horrific mods to it too. Same story, cheap decals and ugly alloy. A real shame. The modification work on this Maxima was like adding really bad sprinkles onto your least favorite donut. Honestly, they did Vince dirty. Could have at least put him in a Toyota Chaser, if nothing else. Number 4. Chrysler Town & Country. Now, if the name hasn't clued you into the type of car this is, let us enlighten you. The Chrysler Town & Country is what you'd call a soccer mom car. When was there ever a soccer mom in the Fast and Furious franchise? You might ask, well, congratulations. You were right, there were none. This unfortunate car was driven by none other than the retired street racer Brian O'Connor. Yeah, it didn't make sense to us either. We get it, he's retired, and the point the movie is trying to make is that Brian is now a family man. But a Chrysler? Really? Couldn't he have had a regular sedan? Or even a decently modified Chrysler that also showed his gearhead nature? We don't know. Guys, this one just didn't sit right with us. Another character done dirty. Now onto the big leagues, the top 3. Number 3, BMW M5 replica. Honestly, do we need to say anything more? This multi-million-dollar franchise about cars decided they weren't willing to actually buy a BMW M5 and tried to make a replica. This would have been fine, of course, except they did a horrible job, and the car was very obviously not what it was supposed to be. The problem with this entry isn't that the car doesn't fit or was too slow, but that the filmmakers decided to just make us gearheads have to accept that our precious M5 was being slaughtered like this. The M5 is a really cool car, guys, and in a rare instance of not doing one of the characters dirty with these bad cars, they did the car itself dirty. A movie about cars of this caliber using a clear fake is like if a Vogue cover featured a fake Gucci bag. Also, side note, more ugly modifications. When will it end? Don't be too shocked yet though. There are still 2 cars that managed to top even this. Buckle up. Number 2, the Mitsubishi Eclipse Spider. The Mitsubishi Spider is legitimately just an awkward car with front-wheel drive on a race car for drifting. Need we say more? Not only is the car just built to be awkward in classic Fast and Furious fashion, but they also gave it the ugliest custom paint job ever. Perhaps only outdone by the number 1 spot on this list. Okay, now this is where it gets wacky. Roman is one of the franchise's main characters across all its various films and is also a fan favorite. The biggest issue is that despite all its flaws, this car had the center stage and was given to the aforementioned Roman. Done dirty again. Number 1, the Volkswagen Touran. The rapper Bow Wow played a part in Tokyo Drift, and for his special car, he was given perhaps the saddest excuse for a vehicle that is featured in these films. Honestly, this thing is a can on wheels, and to make it much worse, it received the most unfortunate custom paint job ever to be seen on the big screen. The Touran, already a goofy choice for a race car movie, was painted over with the illustrations of the Hulk from the Marvel Universe. This ill-advised venture was the attempt of one of the filmmakers to pay homage to their favorite character, and while we stand people being passionate about comic books, this was not it. That's a wrap for this video. Did we miss any terrible cars you noticed in the franchise? Make sure to comment below and leave any suggestions for future videos there as well. Like and subscribe, and as always, turn on the post notifications so you never miss a video. See you guys in the next one.